автоматски, не ова е за да збориш. Не, ова автоматски.
Добро утро на сите, мирмонѓеси.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Prime Minister Mr. Mickoski, dear Ambassador of the European Union Mr. Rokas, dear members of the National Council for Financial Investigations and Asset Confiscation, dear Excellencies and media representatives, dear attendees. I have the honor and pleasure to open the constitutive session of the National Council for Financial Investigations and Asset Confiscation, established by the government on September the 9th, 2025. This council is the highest national mechanism for political oversight and interinstitutional coordination in the area of financial investigations and confiscation of illicitly acquired assets. The session today is a transition from institutional building to real implementation of institutional accountability with a clear vision to ensure a coordinated and efficient institutional approach in the fight against organized crime, corruption, and illicit enrichment. I take this opportunity to thank the Prime Minister and our international guests for their presence, which reflects both the political and international importance of this Council's mandate. The agenda for today's session is divided into two parts: the ceremonial part that we have already started with, and following the break, we will move on with the working part. Without further ado, I'm inviting the Prime Minister, Mr. Christian Mickoski, to take the floor. You may take the floor.
Dear Deputy Prime Minister for Good Governance Policies, Mr. Fetai, dear members, dear colleagues from the government, dear ministers, dear directors, Your Excellencies, dear members of the National Council for Financial Investigations and Confiscation of Assets or Property, dear media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, today we're holding the constitutive session of the National Council for Financial Investigations and Asset Confiscation, a body that is not a formality but a clear and unambiguous message that the state is finally standing firm, systematically and uncompromisingly against the crime and corruption. This government has begun the fight against crime and corruption not with declaration but with actions. Currently, over 50 cases for high corruption are pending, cases that have been covered up, postponed or ignored for years. But this is not the end, it is the beginning. We expect the opening of new cases, thorough investigations and results that will restore the trust of citizens in the state and the institutions alike. I want to say loud and clear, there is no selective justice, there are no protected ones, there are no untouchables. For this fight, for this combat to be successful, it is necessary to strengthen the judiciary and the prosecution system, institutionally and in terms of personnel and functionally. Only a strong, independent and professional judiciary and prosecution can carry this fight, this combat to the end and ensure that justice is not slow nor selective but efficient and fair. I am in favor of strengthened measures in the fight against corruption. Nevertheless, this fight does not end with the criminal proceedings. It must end with the confiscation of illegally acquired property, since the crime must not pay off. What was stolen must be returned to the people. Therefore, this is precisely why we are establishing these mechanisms, and that is why precisely we are constituting this council today. The confiscation of illegally acquired property and property gains is not a simple step. It is a multidimensional and complex process which includes several phases, interconnected and conditional, in which several institutions with clearly defined competencies and responsibilities are involved. Following the phases of the property recovery procedure, the strategy for the period 2025-2028 clearly defines the three priority areas of action. First, finding, identifying, and tracking illegally acquired property and proceeds, not only within the country but also abroad, through international cooperation and modern financial investigation mechanism. Second, temporary securing and confiscation of property and proceeds, quickly, efficiently, and in accordance with the law, with no room for manipulation, delays, or abuses. And third, effective management of seized and confiscated property, including its reuse for social purposes, because seized criminal property must be given a new socially beneficial value and be returned to the service of the citizens. This Council, under the leadership of the Deputy Prime Minister in charge of good governance policies, has a key role in the coordination, oversight, and strategic direction of all these processes. I expect from you professionalism, courage, and integrity, but above all, results. Today, we are laying the foundations of a system in which justice is not a declaration but a practice, in which the fight, the combat against corruption is not a political slogan but a state policy, and in which institutions work in the interest of citizens, not for the protection of individuals. This is a fight for a legal state, this is a fight for trust, this is a fight for the dignity of citizens, and in that fight we will not back down. I wish you successful and responsible work. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your speech. Now allow me to address you with a few words. I'd like to send a message today. Today we are not gathered to take pictures only. Today we are marking the activation and responsibility for the strategic priority of this government, something that is proven by the presence of the Prime Minister at this event. This constitutive session of the National Financial Investigations and Asset Confiscation Council is a turning point regarding the manner in which the state addresses the fight against organized crime and corruption. This council was not established just to add another structure, but to establish a political direction and rehabilitate interinstitutional cooperation where implementation was fragmented. Both the formation of this council by the government decision in September 2025 and today's session are a direct response to a clear institutional conclusion. Normative progress does exist, however, more concrete and solid results are needed, which requires stronger coordination, clearer accountability, and continuous political oversight. The national strategy for strengthening capacities for the development of financial investigations and asset confiscation for the period of 2025-2028, together with the 2025-2026 action plans, offers a clear framework aligned with the European standards. The first annual report for 2025 that is going to be presented during the working part offers us a candid presentation. This political will is required more investment, and precisely these are the reasons for the establishment of this council. The role of this council is not to replace the operational institutions, but to ensure that they act in the same direction with common priorities and measurable accountability. This national council has an extremely important responsibility and role to ensure strong political support and accountability. Our role is not just operational but political. We need to establish clear priorities, remove system blockages, ensure that resources follow policies, and regularly request results, as mentioned and pointed out by the Prime Minister. As Deputy Prime Minister in charge of good governance, as a chair of this council, I consider this forum a key instrument for the transition from institutional cacophony to mandatory interinstitutional coordination. Good governance is not a matter of lip service goals, but of the way in which institutions cooperate and are accountable for their results. In this process, the support and partnership with the European Union and the United States are essential. And I'm taking this opportunity on behalf of the Charge d'Affaires of the United States of America in Skopje to point out that their presence has been postponed due to the closing of their office if they resolve the budget. The continuous engagement of these two strategic partners represents significant support for rule of law reforms and specific, concrete, measurable and sustainable results. Our common goal is clear: to ensure that crime does not generate profits and that illegally acquired assets are recovered to serve the public interest. This is not just a legal requirement or a demand from Brussels, but is a prerequisite for citizens' trust in state institutions. As Mr. Rokas knows very well, but so do all of us present in this room, this is also a key requirement for our European path. For those of us who follow the reports of the European Commission and the conclusions of the EU Council year after year, it is clear that for more than 1 decade, we have been asked to demonstrate a sustainable track record in the confiscation of illegally acquired property. The latest annual report of the European Commission assesses our progress with assets worth around high levels, 4 million euro in the course of 2023, and assets confiscated over 5 million euros compared to 0.5 million in the previous year, a tenfold increase, that is to say. These are good results, but not enough. Today's session is the first of this kind and therefore sets the standard for the future operation of the Council, such as transparency and unwavering focus and action in this regard. From this moment on, a paradigm shift is needed such that confiscation of criminal assets becomes a state priority. Success will not be measured by plans or procedures, but by numbers, by every crime and corruption euro that is confiscated and returned to the state budget. Thank you once again for your engagement in these vital processes of the rule of law state. And now I am honored to invite our friend Mr. Rojas to take the floor. You may take the floor.
Honorable Deputy Prime Minister Fatai, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, dear participants. It is an honor to be part of the constitutive session of the Council, a body of great importance for strengthening the rule of law, a fundamental EU value. Financial investigations and asset confiscation are crucial for fighting serious and organized crimes, corruption, money laundering, and terrorism financing. Effective confiscation of unlawfully gained assets is actually the best way to discourage criminal activities, as it reduces significantly any benefits obtained. These investigations can also provide new leads to uncover other criminal activities and design strategies to tackle entire criminal networks, including their transnational ramifications. On the European Union side, we constantly revise our strategic legislation to keep up and react to the challenges imposed by the fast-evolving criminal trends. In 2025, we adopted the Protect EU European Internal Strategy. It emphasizes the importance of following the tracks of money in order to fight against organized crime and terrorism. Also, the European Union services recognize the significance of confiscation of proceeds of crimes. The most effective way to fight organized crime is going after the criminals' financial assets, notably with asset recovery measures. This helps discover and dismantle the broad networks of criminal organizations operating within and beyond the European Union. A crucial piece of legislation in this regard remains the European Union Directive on Asset Recovery and Confiscation, which builds on previous legal frameworks. I mention these two documents purposely because they are testament of good cooperation between, on the one hand, the experts, and on the other hand, the politicians. Politicians working together with practitioners and academia, analyzing issues and reaching justified decisions and conclusions is a recipe for best results. Hence the importance of the establishment of this body. And I want here to acknowledge the work put by Deputy Prime Minister in putting this National Council together. Not only because it is a testament of the commitment of the authorities of North Macedonia to fight organized and serious crime and corruption, but also because it creates a forum for discussion between the political side and the expert side. And there are two good reasons for that, besides what I mentioned before. For finding the best solutions for the implementation of the strategy of financial investigation and asset confiscation. And second, for finding ways to improve the overall situation with the existing laws and human capacities. In the reform agenda, as the Deputy Prime Minister said, the government has included measures to improve the framework for financial investigations and asset confiscation. The purpose is creating obligations to increase the standalone financial investigations and the overall value of seizure, freezing, and confiscation of proceeds of crime, and strengthening the human and technical capacities and making Asset Recovery Office and the Agency for Management of Confiscated Property fully operational. So in this important endeavor, the European Union will be with you at every step of the way through the support for Rule of Law project. We are providing expert support also in the area of financial investigations and asset confiscation. This is only part of our support, but what is decisive for achieving results is your commitment, dedication, and hard work. So I wish the Council constructiveness, efficiency, and good results in these endeavors. Thank you very much. Blagodaram falimenderit.
Ambasador,
Thank you, Ambassador, for your speech. And now I am turning over to the Minister of Interior, Mr. Toshkovsky. You may take the floor, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister, dear Prime Minister, dear Deputy Prime Minister, dear Ambassador Rokas, dear ministers, dear directors, dear attendees. Today I'm addressing you on the behalf of the Ministry of Interior in order to confirm our dedication to the combat against the crime, corruption, and all types of illegal acquiring of property. We are in a period as a country when we need to strengthen the capacities of the country and build a system that will be efficient. With the national strategy for 2025-2028, we have set the base for new institutional frame. This base is not the key for the European integration, but it also strengthens the combat against the corruption and the trust in the institutions. During 2025, the focus was to establishing mechanisms for combating financial criminal corruption, and we have seen some steps forwards, especially in the improvement of the institutional coordination and financial analysis in the proceedings. Especially important is that during last year we have seen a growth and increase in the practices for identification and temporary freezing of assets acquired with criminal acts. We were following the money, and this is becoming a practice, not an exclusion. This impacts on the trust gaining for the citizens in the institutions, and it confirms that the criminal is not something that will pay off. It will be for sure defined, and we're defining clear mechanisms for building a society that is going to be free of corruption. The annual report for the action plan for the national strategy shows increase of the technical and staff capacities through trainings, exchange of data, and use of modern tools for financial analysis. The report, however, is not just a document, but it also defines the challenges that we're facing, the need for defining a more clear legislative framework, and strengthening the institutional cooperation, especially in complex and transborder cases. This is done in two directions. It will serve as an indicator for the future activities for the action plan. We have to admit that the challenges are remaining: the lack of financial experts and analysts in the judiciary, the insufficient staffing in the agency for property confiscation is something that we need to address as ASAP. Therefore, the Ministry of Finance is going to do its best to strengthen these capacities. Our combat against the criminal is not only legal, but is institutional and moral. The confiscation of property is not a punishment, but a tool for returning of the justice and the protection of the public interest. In 2025, through the action plan, we provided $452 million through direct confiscation, and this is a proof that we need to improve the system in order to have more influence. Dear attendees, our objective is very clear. The Ministry of Finance is going to continue to upgrade its capacities, to define the weak points, and will try to have the practice that is going to be showing visible results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Now we are turning over to Ms. Minister of Finance, Ms. Dimitrievska Kuczowska. You may take the floor. Dear Christian Mickoski, Prime Minister, Arben Fetai, Deputy Prime Minister in charge of Good Governance Policy, Michalis Rokas, Ambassador of the EU in Macedonia, dear Ministers, dear colleagues, esteemed partners and guests, our today's session has a strong symbolic but even more practical weight by the establishment of the National Council for Financial Investigations and Asset Confiscation. The state is making a clear step from a declarative commitment to a strengthened and structured system of accountability, coordination, and results. The Ministry of Finance has a central role in this process, since financial investigations and the confiscation of illicitly acquired assets are not only a matter of security and justice, but also a matter of fiscal stability, integrity of the financial system, and trust in institutions. Our competence is multifaceted and encompasses key institutions that are directly involved in detecting, monitoring, and preventing illicit financial flows. Here, I mean primarily the Financial Police Administration, the Customs Administration, as well as the public revenue system for preventing money laundering and terrorist financing. Within the national strategy for 2025-2028, the Ministry of Finance is undertaking specific, measurable, and substantive activities. The Ministry of Finance is actively undertaking specific steps to strengthen the legal framework that directly supports the efficiency of financial investigations. The new law on Customs Administration creates a clearer and more efficient basis for access to relevant data and better monitoring on financial and commodity flows related to crime. In parallel, by improving the legal framework for the Financial Police Administration, its role is in conducting financial investigations is strengthened, confiscation illegally acquired property, and professionalization of its staff. Our goal is a functional legal framework that enables rapid, coordinated, and effective investigations that provide results in line with European standards and the obligations from the reform agenda. In addition, I have to underline that in recent years, the Financial Police Directorate has significantly intensified its work with clear and visible results. Out of 9 financial investigations in 2022, 17 in 2023, 10 investigations in 2024. Already in 2025, a clear step forward was made. 58 financial investigations were initiated, covering around 400 individuals and 95 legal entities. Of these, 33 investigations have already been completed and the others are ongoing. In parallel, within the law on confiscation of property in civil proceedings, the Directorate acted upon the initiatives of public prosecutors' offices, where a court measure was secured for property worth over 38 million dinars, which clearly shows that financial investigations are not just procedures but lead to real confiscation and protection of public interest. I have to underline that we are committed to building institutional capacities. Financial investigations require highly specialized knowledge, technical equipment, and analytical tools. Therefore, the strategy envisages systematic staffing strengthening, phased technical equipment, and digitalization of specialized units within the institutions under our jurisdiction. Especially important segment is the electronic data exchange and interoperability. The quick and secure access to relevant registries and databases is a prerequisite for timely and successful financial investigation. The Ministry of Finance is actively participating in the process of establishing interoperability agreements and their full operationalization. We invest in continuous and specialized training. Financial investigations today are complex, oftentimes transnational, and increasingly related to digital finance. Therefore, we support the establishment of an integrated training system, starting from basic to advanced training events, multidisciplinary and practical, in order for institutions to be prepared to respond to modern challenges. And finally, we are aware that the fight against organized crimes knows no borders. Therefore, the Ministry of Finance is actively working to strengthen international cooperation, especially with the agencies of the European Union, Europol, CEPOL, Eurojust, and OLAF networks, thus ensuring the exchange of information, experiences, and good practices. The formation of the National Council is precisely a reflection of the awareness that even the best strategy remains only a document if there is no strong mechanism for monitoring, coordination, and political support for its implementation. As the Ministry of Finance, we will contribute to making this Council active, functional, and result-oriented. Our message is clear. Crime must not and will not pay off. With a systemic approach, strong institutions, and clear accountability, we will create the conditions for illegally acquired assets to be identified, confiscated, and returned to society. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Allow me, as a Chairman of the National Council, to thank you for being part of this event today. Your presence and the substantive messages conveyed in this important occasion are strong support for strengthening interinstitutional and international cooperation in promoting the rule of law and the efficient fight against organized crime and corruption. Thank you once again for your participation and valuable contribution. And before we continue with the working part, I would like to declare a 5-minute break. Thank you.